probably get to a PhD from a practical sense. But all that crap to me doesn't matter. The reason why is because all those individual designations don't necessarily teach you anything about finance, right? And what I mean by finance is personal finance. So the best way to think about it is money is the one thing that you use every day that doesn't come with instructions or ingredients, right? If you really think about it, everything that else that you use during the day tells you exactly what you need to do or what's inside of it. But when it comes to money, it's one of those things in our communities, especially where people have a problem. They have a phobia. There's an issue when it comes to talking about money. So I dedicated a large part of my life, even when I was younger. It's always something that's fascinated me. Seeing your parents argue about it, seeing your friends argue about it, seeing how people get weird about it. Um, and it's more behavior than it is mathematics. And then one of the things that I've committed to, especially over the last couple of years, especially this year, given all the racial issues that's been going on, is to try to get this information out to people. I'm one of the few people who think if Black people ever actually controlled their finances, you can have a lot more power. It's a lot harder to enslave somebody who's rich, right? It's a lot harder to hold somebody back who has personal finance. So that's something that I've been trying to do since then.
I completely agree. I agree with everything you said. A lot of times it's taboo to talk about it. We don't talk about it. I remember I sat down with one of my aunts. She has like probably one of the most financially successful families in our family. And I sat down, like, what did you do differently? And she said that one of the things that she did was she sits down with her kids and they pay the bills. They
Nice.
show them how they pay the bills. They every month, and then they tell them like, you're not getting this because it's in the not in the budget, or if you want this, you have to delay something else because it's in the budget. And I thought that was just awesome because it's really setting a good foundation for them that things don't grow on trees, like, and how to be responsible. And second of all, there are a lot of decisions being made that we are not happy with. And we think that, and no offense to anyone who's doing anything, that like arguing about it or marching about it will bring about some change. And what brings about change when people really listen to you, when you have the power and when you have the money to make a decision. And we don't financially back our decisions in our community. So I completely agree that
Yeah,
this.
that's something I caught a lot of flack for that when all this started. Because one of the things I couldn't comprehend was marching during a pandemic. I couldn't see it. I didn't see that vision. I understood the frustration behind it. I didn't understand the vision behind it, though, where African Americans were more predominantly able to catch the virus in the first place, and now we're out there screaming in people's faces. Um, but to me, it was one of those things where we have to look just beyond that as well. There's a time and a place to march, but there's also a time and a place to understand what true power is. And in my opinion, a lot of people say, well, money isn't everything. It's not, but it's up there with air,
I agree. I
right?
agree.
And I think that's one of the things I think that people tend to forget is that true power is going to rely on your financial freedom. And that when you have the ability to do what you want,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a lot harder for people to like. Dr. Claude Anderson had a good book about powernomics and stuff like that. But if you ever listen to his speeches, one of the things he talks about is the group economic theory and the theory of making sure that we as a group use our money collectively to do certain things. And the way you can use your money is to, number one, reduce your expenses, get out of debt, but then strategically use your money in such ways that you can advance your own agendas. So a lot of people, they don't connect the two. They don't realize that, they've heard the expression money is power, but they never think power for them is money. It's one of the weirdest things in the world. Like they understand it, but when it comes to them, they don't think they have any power. Well, you do. No one forces you to buy anything.
I completely agree, and I really enjoy Dr. Claus Anderson's teachings and his readings, and I read Powernomics earlier this year. But yeah, you touched on a very key word: freedom. Money and not being a slave to debt allows you to be free.
Yes.
And that's something I didn't understand when I was younger, and well, college age. I took out a lot of debt, thinking that a prestigious university degree would make a difference, but not realizing that you're actually more free when you're not slave to that debt. That debt is not power. It's holding you back. Unless that debt is like buying you an investment property and it makes sense, but like the numbers really have to make sense. But usually going into debt for something that you cannot pay off immediately or you don't have the money for is not a good idea. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe your childhood, whatever you want about your story, but how did you start on this debt-free journey? Like, what was the spark for you? And like, you weren't always debt-free. Like, what got you into that debt?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've always had a knack at is to help people with their budgets over the years, and even when I was younger, like always had a fascination with money. So coming out of school, coming out of college, you work for a little bit, you swipe in credit cards, you're not really making any money anyway, like you're still living at home, you're just BSing all the time. I went back, did my amateur car, go live your life, right? YOLO, right? That type of life where now I deserve to make this money, I deserve to spend this money, I deserve to be happy. Well, one day I'm having a conversation with one of my closest friends, my best friend since kindergarten. He shows up to my house one day and we're about to go to the city. And me and him, whenever we talk about finance a lot. And he said, yeah, I just paid off my student loans. It never occurred to me at that point to pay off the loans. And I remember sitting in the car and asking him, like, what made you do it? He was like, I had the opportunity to do it. We were flipping houses, XYZ. This is why I did it. Get rid of it. I don't need the payment. Well, 8 months later, he showed up to my house again. And I sat in the front seat of his car and I said, you know what, Sean? Yeah, I paid off my student loans. And that's what started it. Right? That's what started that journey of, okay, what is the point of all this? Like, why am I keeping this debt? That was the smartest decision I ever made, was before I left my mother's house where everybody's getting the new cars, the new houses, the new apartments. I paid off that loan before I moved. Then you had the credit cards, right? So I never had a large balance. I never had those types of things, but you always had a balance. So think about someone like me who has been in finance, has helped people with their budgets, and I still had a balance. It wasn't a lot, but you start wondering, why are you paying this interest all the time? And what you realize is money is more emotional than it is mathematics, right? So paying off that credit card hurt. Swiping the credit card was easy, right? Swiping the credit card gives you a lot of pleasure, but paying it off, that hurts. You physically see your account drop. And there was plenty of times I've sat in this apartment just sitting here like, shit, I'm done. It's over, right? Like, my money's gone, right? So I paid off the credit card. After I paid off the credit card, there was one item left, which was my car. And I was lucky enough to have the money. I was always saving money. And then I was given the opportunity to one day drop a good amount of money and pay it off completely. This is before I knew about Dave Ramsey. This is before I knew about Debt Free Community. This is everything. I just had the mentality of, why am I giving these people all this money? And that was the catalyst. The catalyst was the start of the conversation with my best friend. But then after that, it was really going into the numbers, because I've always been a math person. What you realize is there's a reason why. I had a conversation yesterday with somebody where there's a reason why, if you go where you are right now on the West Coast, the majority of the stores you go to, if you ever watch people online, what do they pay with? They pay with a credit card, right? They don't, very rarely, like, cash is almost taboo at this point. No one carries cash. Everybody carries a card. The reason why is because you're statistically more likely to overspend using a credit card, right? Like, it just is what it is. So when you start going into the behavior about it, that's what caused me to say, nah, I'm done. I'm out the game. So I only have one more thing I got to do, which is, if I ever get a house, like, I'll stomach a mortgage for maybe 7 years, but after that, I'm out the game. That's it. It's over.
No, that's awesome. And like you said, when you really do the numbers, I did that recently with my car, and I'll be rid of that soon. Like, you're doubling the car in interest if you keep the loan the full term.
Yep.
So if you pay it off, you're saving yourself like $20,000. And what can that $20,000, for example, what can that $20,000 do in investments? That can be a down payment on a house. Like, when you start thinking about all these things, it really will give you the opportunity to pay that off. And I think that was a good, like, you live in New York, very high cost of living. So you were able to stay in your parents' house. and YOLO, you only live once. So now, like, it gives you the opportunity. We're in a pandemic now, but if we weren't in the pandemic, to really enjoy your life. So if you want to go out, you don't have to do that with debt. You don't have to like make the decision like, do I need to pay my car note or can I go on this trip with my friends? You know what I'm saying? You have the opportunity to make those choices. And like we were talking about, it's about freedom. So if you can just tell me a little bit more, like, strategically. So you paid that off strategically. Like, what did you do? Like, how did you start making a budget? Like, how did you set those goals to say, hey, I'm going to pay off my student loan. Hey, I'm going to pay off my car note. And if you don't mind sharing numbers, like, what were the numbers with your student loans and what were the numbers with your car note?
Sure. I think the student loans were in the 30s or 20. Like, yeah, I think it was in the 30s at the time. So, nowadays it's almost double, right? If you try to get a student loan now, but at the time it was about 30 something grand, maybe 30, 40 grand by the time you add in everything. And what I did was basically assumed I was paying rent to my loans at the time. So if I had no rent, I was just paying like $800, $900 checks every single month on top of whatever the minimum payment was. And I kept hitting it. I kept hitting it. I kept hitting it. I think one of the things that worked for me strategically is you have to be on a budget, right? So for everybody who's watching, there is no point in you trying to get out of debt if you don't have a budget. The reason why is because the budget's going to tell you how much money you have left over, right? You have to be able to not only pay yourself, but also get rid of the monkey on your shoulder. For the majority of people who go to school, they come out with a negative net worth. See, a lot of people put money on credit scores rather than a net worth, right? So the majority of your life up to the 20s, you had either a positive net worth or it was basically zero. And then automatically come out of school and you're 100 grand in debt. Like that, it just doesn't make any sense. So for me, it was a budget. You had to be on a budget. And then number two is you had to have discipline. A lot of people start this journey and then they stop, right? Because it's not fun, right? So the equivalent I use is, remember when, like, imagine anyone right now trying to go to the gym, right? What's the worst part about going to the gym? It's putting your sneakers on. It's not even getting to the gym, it's putting your sneakers on, right? It's the discipline to actually carry out the process of being tired and physically beat. Well, that's the same thing about getting out of debt. There were a lot of days where you had to sit there and remember why you're doing this, right? So you have to have a goal. There has to be a reason why you're doing this. So you mentioned being in New York. The cost of living in New York as well as California is pretty high. Any of these metropolitan areas, especially where Black people are, is high. However, it's possible with discipline. No one tells you got to go buy things. So you got to be on a budget. You have to stay disciplined. And you got to remember that a part of all that you earn is yours to keep, right? A lot of us, when we get paid, we pay all these people we don't like. When you look back at it, it's mind boggling to me. You pay everybody you don't like, and then whatever's left in your pocket, that's maybe what you give to yourself, maybe something to God, okay, bye. And then you repeat the process. And then you wonder why you're broke, right? So you have to keep on and maintain it. Now, there's different things now. You use the debt avalanche and debt snowball, etc. But at the end of the day, you got to be on budget. You got to have the discipline to pay yourself and make sure you make money. And you got to make sure that you keep that discipline. You got to keep your head focused on the reason, because there's going to be, your friends are going to look at you like you're a complete idiot, right? If you're not doing this with your friends, if you're doing this for Dolo, everybody's going to look at you crazy because they can't comprehend what that even means.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And those are some really good tips. Like, definitely need to have a budget. It's definitely about discipline. It's definitely an exercise. And you mentioned about putting the sneakers on. One of my favorite books is Atomic Habits. And he talks in Atomic Habits about the doing of the thing is not the hard thing. It's the initiation of the action. So, whatever the first step is to getting out the debt, that's the overcoming that mental barrier is that thing. It's more psychology and mentality than it is anything else. So that's really, really good. So tell us more about, how do you help people? Like, so now you're on a mission to help people. Like, why are you on this mission and how do you help people?
Sure. So the number one reason why I'm doing this, in my opinion, for me personally, is not just to give people the information about personal finance. That's too small of a reason. for me, it's make sure that you provide personal finance information to minorities, especially Black people, especially Black women, right? Because when you go on the rung, they're usually at the bottom, right? They get hit twice, as a woman and as a Black person. So it's to provide personal finance information to Black people so that they can be more charitable, right? Because it makes absolutely no sense for you to be financially free and not to be able to help people, right? Like we talked about in the beginning, the whole point of this was that you were watching people complain about how Black people are always behind the eight ball. Well, last time I checked, we're still trying to depend on people to help us when you can help yourself. So that was the thing for me, right? Was to get in front of that and try to give the information away for free. Um, when you look at it in totality, the information is there, right? You know, we joking in the beginning, like, you know, why do you, so a lot of people sit in front of the bookshelf. I like to sit in front of it, so I like to remind people that's how I got the information. It wasn't through the collegiate aspects of it, right? I know how to invest. I know how to do all those types of things. I've studied all of that. But when it comes to personal finance, it's the stuff behind me. It's actually making it a study. So what I try to help people with is, number one, face their fear. Most people are fearful of money. So when you think about finances, most people think about mathematics. That's the most hated subject on earth. So no wonder people are walking around doing the budget in their head, because they don't want to see it on paper. You really want to scare somebody? Show them the full number of what their debt is. Watch that. Watch how their face gets. It hurts. But once you rip that Band-Aid off, and that's what I try to help people do, and then from there you just help people along the way, right? How do you develop a budget? How do you develop your discipline? How do you get out of debt? Do you want to get out of debt? But here's the thing, and you probably have the same opinion. I can't help you find new money, right? That's not going to happen, right? All I can tell you is the truth, and the truth is going to hurt, right? And I'm a very big believer that you reap what you sow, right? So I'm not, just my personal opinion, I'm never a fan of the whole debt forgiveness stuff. I am not a fan of it at all. I'm a fan of people assisting you, but not a forgiveness, because that's not how life works, right? Everything you do in life comes back, whether good or bad. So you have to take the hit, but you got to learn as you go along, and then give that information away to other people so that they can achieve what they need to achieve. I think that's the big thing. That's why I'm doing it, is to get that information as much as we can so we can help people.
Yeah. I wanted to pick back on what you were saying. So no, I mean, I mostly agree. Like with the debt forgiveness, like if it's forgiven, fine. But the thing is, like, a lot of people, I remember, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to pay my student loans. I need to get a better job so I can make more to my student loans. And whenever I told somebody that, they would say, why? Like, I'm not even worried about my student loans. That's just going to be there forever. Or I'm going to wait for it to get forgiven. Or we're going to have a president that forgives our student loans, so I'm not even paying it. And I just don't really understand that mentality, because we're relying on the government to save us. And they have proven that they have never, especially for Black and brown communities, that they are not on our side. So all these promises we've been waiting on for years, we're still going to wait for the government to bail us out. It just doesn't make sense for me. They didn't even bail us out of this pandemic, and other countries were bailing their citizens out. So if they can't even bail us out during a pandemic, I really don't think that we should hold our breath for them to bail us out of our student loans. And it also, that gives power to someone else instead of giving the power to yourself. And we have to like reclaim our power. Like you saying like, I'm gonna wait for it to be forgiving is saying that I am powerless against my student loans, instead of coming up with a plan to like take charge of your life. So no, I definitely agree.
It comes with the expression, right? What it comes with is it comes with the expression of, figure out a way to become debt free, not because of the monetary aspects of it, but because of what it takes to make of you to do it. That's the teaching moment, right? That's the moment. That's what you're doing it for. It's not just to have the extra cash now to do whatever you want. You got to be a different type of person to be able to accomplish that. So no matter what happens after that point, no matter what happens after you achieve your debt-free lifestyle, or whatever your goal is, you can always accomplish it again because you've developed the skills behind it. See, my big thing is if they keep promising you everything for free, then you're never going to learn. And like you mentioned before, now you're dependent on somebody else to do what you can do yourself. Right? That's something I get the people who are really, they're down and out. Like they have so much debt, they've accumulated it, they got 3 kids. Like I think about that Black female, there's no man at home. I got 3 kids, I'm working 2 jobs, and I am doing everything I possibly can to put these kids through school. That person should be assisted. But the majority of us, no. You should be able to figure out how to do it because it's going to change here. And that's what I think we got to do, right? We have to change this. If you look at, not only whether Republicans or Democrats or whatever your political affiliation, what they're going to do during this election cycle is keep throwing free stuff at you to say, hey, vote for me. Well, when you're financially free, that's not going to appeal to you no more. Now they got to do things that actually make a difference, right? So there's a difference about it, I think, that people go through. But I mean, to me personally, that's why you become debt free, because of what it's going to make of you in terms of your skills and your knowledge. And at that point, you can help the other person right next to you do the same thing.
I agree. And that's a really good point. You just made some really good points. Like the person that you have to become on this journey. And it's not even just about the quote unquote debt-free journey, whatever journey you're on, the person that you have to become to make that change, because you were a certain person that got you to where you were. And then you have to become a new person to, get yourself out of that. And we were talking about like everything being thrown at us because of, the election cycle and like these promises being made. And there's a new thing that has happened from our current administration where they, and you might be more educated on this because especially with your education background, that they are withholding taxes, but we have to pay it back later. And so a lot of people, I've been telling my friends, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can help me out here. I've been telling my friends, save that money, don't spend it because you're going to have to pay it back. So like, don't spend it, just have it in savings. And then, so when it's time to come back to be paid, because else you're going to have penalties and things like that, and you're not going to have the money. So like, what is your opinion on that? What is a good strategy for our people so they're not messed up next, like when taxes come around?
Yeah, what you're referring to is the payroll tax, right? Which is what funds Social Security. And that's been something that the Republican or conservative administration, at least for now, has been thinking about doing. So if you notice, since the pandemic started, a lot of the initiatives that they've had have gone to people who lost their job, not to people who kept their job, right? The people who kept their job, their salaries were decreased. Mine was decreased. A lot of people's were decreased at the time. But they were like, well, you guys got a job. Screw you guys. We're going to keep doing what we have to do over here, which is fine. But they also wanted to do something for the people who have a job. So the payroll tax doesn't necessarily mean that number one, your company may not even do this, right? So the reason why is because there's no guarantee for the company that they're going to be forgiven on the tax, which is what you're referring to. So the company itself may have to pay this tax later on. So they may not even participate, or they may not give you the money. So in my opinion, if you're getting the money, this extra money that you're getting, I'm not sure, don't hold me to it, I'm not sure if you're going to be taxed versus the company, but one way or another, this money they're giving you is going to be taxed, right? Whether it be on your income tax later on, whether it be through your company, but you put a certain amount in and your company puts a certain amount in. That's what contributes to the Social Security or the payroll tax. So if they give you the money now, you better believe the next time you file your taxes, they're going to come for that money. The company that you work for, if they don't forgive it, they'll come for that money. So if you notice what President Trump said, and regardless of what people feel about him, he's not an idiot when it comes to this. He said, look, I'm going to forgive the payroll, or I'm going to forgive the payroll taxes after I'm elected. He's not going to do it now, right? He's going to hold it over your head and say, look, hey, if you want your payroll taxes to stay in and be forgiven, then elect me. Right? That's the politics game that they're playing. Now, taking a step back with your friends and just thinking about it out loud, it's also up to a certain point, right? So if you make a certain amount of income, this is not even applicable to you anymore. So I think it's like 125 or 114,000, something like that. It's like above a certain number, it's not even applicable to you anymore. The question becomes, are you voting for somebody just because of that? Right? Now, if you're financially free, what does that do for you? Absolutely nothing. And that's the point, right? How do you get to a point where those politicians can't hold that over your head no more? That to me is what it's about.
I agree. And that goes with anything, you know, holding the forgiving of the, oh, if we're
I don't know
elected.
if I can hear you or not.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Nope, I still can't hear you. No.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
What is going on?
Let me see if it's mine. Hold on. Nah, I don't. Yeah, I still don't.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Mm-mm.
It says on my end that you can't hear me. Can you hear me now? No?
Still can't.
Okay. Hold on 1 second.
You can hear me though, right?
Hold on 1 second. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
No,
now?
still can't.
Nope.
Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
This is so weird.
You can hear me?
Can you hear me now?
No, still can't.
This is weird. Okay. I'm gonna end it, and we're gonna jump on something else. I'm gonna send you a link.
You want me to try to log out and come back in?
Yeah.
All right, give me a sec. I think I hear something.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
What I'm going to do now is I kept muting myself. I'm just not going to mute myself while you were speaking. But we left off at talking about the payroll tax and being free.
Yep.
And not having to vote for someone because they make us promises. It goes on both ends. You know, the conservatives are promising payroll tax forgiveness, and the Democrats are promising student loan relief. And like you said, we have to be able to look past that and say, I'm going to make a decision based off real policies that are going to make real changes in our community, besides waving these things in our faces that may or may not happen, because they can get into office and then decide that that's not what they want to do, or it's not feasible, you know? So though, definitely when we have money, we can now vote without being blinded by shiny things, basically. So that's a very, very good point. Voting, community, we can make decisions in our house, in our life, about not having to, you know, take a job that we really don't want, just because we have to pay off this debt or pay these bills. I mean, I'm still honestly in a situation where I have to maybe work in a way that I don't want to, because there's things that I have to pay, but the goal is within 5 years that I can do with what I want to. You know, I can work where I want, work how I want, things like that. Because when you're financial free, it makes gives you that freedom. So now, you mentioned about, you know, possibly buying a house. So now you're at your parents' house, you're debt free, car, living in Brooklyn, you know, living the dream, right? But and still helping people. What's next? Like, what are your next goals? What are your money goals, career goals, things like that?
Sure. So I think from a money goal perspective is to see how far and how long I can wait for the house, right?
Okay.
So there's a few different things that I'm considering to purchase out because I can, I make a good amount of money plus I'm able to be debt free, so I have a lot of cash coming in. I can choose how to use it. Um, so I think for me, it's like I want a house that's a 15-year mortgage, right? So it's not a 30. I want a house where the mortgage, the insurance, and the taxes are no more than 25% of my take home pay. I want to make sure that I don't touch the 6 months of my expenses, right? I want to make sure that I'm paid off, and I want a 15-year mortgage, but I want it done in 7, and I don't want to take on any additional debt to do so, right? That sounds damn near impossible. But if I'm able to even remotely get close to that, then could you imagine never having to cut a check ever again for rent, which is usually the largest expense folks have every month. So that's for me the big next step is how do you position yourself to be able to do that. So financially, it's that. I think educationally is to keep reading, to keep educating yourself. For some reason, when we leave college, people think that you're just done with your education, right? Because you usually up to that point, you've been forced to read things you don't want to read, right? You've been forced to go to classes you don't want to go to. But from an educational perspective, is to keep educating yourself, not just about personal finance, but history and things that are, autobiographies, those type of things that can get you thinking differently about life. Professionally, I think for me, I'd love to continue what I'm doing. So I'm also in the finance field, and I help with investment firms kind of like go into compliance and work for a great company. I think eventually it's also going to be helping people on the side with their own finances. And if that ever bubbles up into something that can be its primary source of income for me, then so be it. But I think that's the next goal, right? The next goal is to keep getting out the information. So one of the things like me and my friend Terrence, we joke about a lot is I'm doing this for free. Like I'm not, what I mean? Like the videos we do and all this type of information, unless like I have to do something tailored for somebody on the side. But all this information we putting out, that's just for free. That's just to give the game away in such a way that has never been presented to me. I had to go and read all the books and kind of go through things. So I think that's what it is. I think financially is figure out how to get the house the cheapest way I can and ultimately be 100% debt free with a house. I get that, I'm gone. Um, I think it's, personally and spiritually and mentally is to keep educating yourself, keep reading. But I can honestly tell people, even for like someone like yourself, like it's like, I want to be debt free in 5 years. Don't give up. Do not give up under any circumstances, especially as a Black woman. Because if you do it, then you can turn around and tell all your friends how to do it. Because they'll never, like, they'll believe you quicker than they believe me. Right? They'll just be like, whatever. But when they see you do it, you can speak from a certain type of experience that most people will never be able to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Even yeah, definitely. And just telling my friends, because my friends, most are engineers, they make good money, but I see a lot of people, they might be like the first generation of making good money in their family, and they don't know how to save it. Like they don't know how to save it, they don't know how to invest it, they don't make it work for them, and they can be making good money. I live in the Midwest, so it's relatively to other places a lower cost of living, but I live in Chicago, so it's higher,
Okay.
like higher than the rest of the Midwest. But my friends are like all over the Midwest. Most of my friends are in Michigan. Michigan's very low cost of living, honestly. And most of them still have trouble with having anything in savings, having anything in investments, even when they are making a lot of money. I think that, like you said, it's like psychology. Seeing someone make a practical benefit from doing something and making a practical change is a benefit. A lot of people recently, I had a baby, and my company, I work for a tech company, did not know they didn't offer paid maternity leave. So I had to save for that maternity leave myself. And just showing my friends that I was able to save for that maternity leave while being the sole earner because her dad was a grad student. So, you know, just being able to share that information, they're like, so how did you do that? So people come to me like, how do you make a budget? Like, how do you make extra income? Things like that. So just being able to see tangible changes, and share those with people like are really helpful. So I've been sharing just my journey, my debt-free journey, and on the way there, and I've been like just meeting people and seeing people, and it's been really, really amazing that I've been learning from people. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So I mean, you're on your way to reach those goals, get a house. So are you going to get a house in the city, in the suburbs? Like, what are you going to do?
I think so. This is what I tell people all the time. It's like looking for a car, right? Do you get a Honda? Do you get an Acura? Do you get a Benz? I let the finance dictate first, right?
Okay.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, right,
Right.
that's the mentality you're supposed to have, right? The mentality is like, let the number dictate when you get to that point. I mean, objectively, I would love to stay in Brooklyn and Queens. In my personal opinion, probably Queens more than Brooklyn because I can probably park easier in Queens. In Brooklyn, you can't park on anywhere, any block. But, if you live in Long Island, the houses are cheaper, but you have higher taxes, right? You're paying damn near almost, $800 a month in taxes, right? So I may not have any mortgage, but if I still got to come out $800 or a grand every month, what's the point? Like, it still sucks. So, I think that's hopefully the goal. And the one thing I would tell people, to be honest, is make sure that on your way, especially for you as you start to move through your journey, don't forget to be charitable, right? Don't forget to, a part of your income is yours to keep, but also a part of it is yours to help other people. And the expression I always think about is, for 10 cents of every dollar is a lot easier to separate with when it comes to, 100 grand of a million, right? It's the same percentage, right? 10 cents on a dollar is still the same percentage, but as you start to expand it and you start to grow your money, you start to build that habit now. So I always tell people, try to be charitable. It's agnostic of religion, right? So what do I mean by that? Especially for people like us who are Black, right? So when all this was coming on and people were getting upset because of the social unrest, well, you can donate to whatever organization you have if it's already part of your budget, no matter what it is. Just get into the habit of doing it. But I think, yeah, I mean, for you in particular, just keep pushing forward, man. I think that's going to be an awesome look. I think that, like I said, the interesting thing for me was I did it a lot before I realized there was the journey. Right? I already had the journey in my brain. I didn't know they put it on paper like this. I didn't know. Like, my thing was just, why am I giving all these people money every month for whatever reason? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. No, and that's good and that's awesome. And now you're in a place like when you start a family, and when you have kids, like they won't have to do this. Like, my goal is, my parents told me, take all the loans out, take all the student loans you need to. Will be in a place where I can tell my daughter, like, don't take out any loans. We got it. We'll figure out a way. Or we're going to go somewhere where it's financially responsible. And like you said, as soon as you come out of college, most people have a negative net worth. She will graduate college and have a positive net worth. So we're able to change the trajectory for future generations. And that's, to me, where we have real power too, where we're not like continuing in this financial bondage, continuing in this debt, where we're taking out all these loans to keep up the appearances, to be in the suburbs and things like that, where we're actually like have wealth and our kids don't have to be, slaves to these things anymore.
Agree. Totally agree. I mean, that's the whole point of it, right? The whole point is to leave a legacy. The whole point is to leave the generational wealth. You hear that people say this is a nice catchy phrase, right? Generational wealth, build money, da 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 da. But very few people actually do it. Watch the people who actually have gone through the hell to do it, not the people who just talk about it, right? So for example, you and your child, right? You want to, the generational wealth you're leaving your child is not only the money, but the education on how to do it, right? Because you can look at your child in the face when she's 17 or when she's 16 and say, hey, listen, a lot of your friends right now are going to be telling you to go to all these stupid schools and all this kind of stuff. Let me tell you what we did, right? Let me tell you how we're going to do this. and you start to educate them. The one thing that when it comes to generational wealth and preparing for the future is to not only leave wealth from a money aspect, right? You have to leave your kid the education on how to, right? I was joking with a friend of mine. What about if your kid's an idiot, right? Like it's just one of those things. We hate to have that, but we all have kids and nieces and nephews and sons and all that. They can care less about money, right? They can care, especially when you're younger. When you was 17, you care less about what they're telling you. So you have to leave them the education, because if you give somebody a ton of money with no financial education, it's the equivalent of somebody hitting the lotto. That's why most people who hit the lotto go broke in 5 years.
No, I agree. I've seen, unfortunately, I've seen many instances of people around me, people close to me, whose parents have died, and they thought they left them, a large sum of money, and they thought that in the insurance policy or in savings or whatever way they left them that money, and they thought their parents thought they were doing the right thing by leaving them that money, but their kids have blown through it, and it's millions of dollars because they didn't have the education to sustain it. Like, they've bought all of these things. I don't know. Like, it's just education, because some of them I see, they try to start a business or they try to buy property or things like that, but they're still not educated on the right way to do that so that it can make money forever. Because the goal is, if you're buying a business or doing a business, you don't want a business that you're just throwing money into and you're not profiting, or property that you got to spend all this money and you don't profit out of it. Is not giving you any positive return or anything, but it's education, like you said. And sometimes we don't have that education, and we need to seek out those resources to get that education.
Yep, totally agree. I mean, you're basically trying to tell people, or when they get that type of money, they think that's what they're supposed to do, right? And then the worst thing people do is they have broke people listen to other broke people.
Yes.
The worst thing in the world, and you get impressed by a Rolex, and you get impressed by a nice car. You should be impressed by net worth, right? You should be that's what people should be impressed by. Not even net worth, but don't be impressed by the flashy things. Don't just think that's what you're supposed to. Some people can't handle managing multiple properties. They're not built.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Not to day trade. That's not it's not that hard to become a millionaire. You're more likely to become a millionaire via your 401k than you are from anything else.
Yes. And a lot of people need to hear that. Most millionaires become millionaires saving regularly and working a job. and that's okay.
And they don't realize that, right? But they think the only way that you become a millionaire, you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to flip houses. You got to day trade. You got to do this. And these people are telling you all these things. And I always ask you, who the hell told you this? Who did you study? Who did you read on? Because there's statistics, right? Remember I told you I'm a statistics major. So I want to see where this came from. And what a lot of times is it kind of, you read one book, right? And then that's it, right? They read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that's all there is to it. That's what you need to do. But there's so many different ways to accumulate wealth and to accumulate passive wealth that if we're both at the age of 65 and you got 3.5 million, I got 3.25, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. You know what I'm saying? But it's you have to get the education. And I think the education starts, in my opinion, always from book, because there's a lot of good people, both white and black, that have written books on how they have accumulated wealth to be able to provide that to people. Right. And it's at our, remember, these books are available for like $19.99, and people, right, they'll watch a YouTube video for 5 minutes and then they think they know everything about day trading, like, or some shit like that, right? Or options. That's the new thing now. So it's not just that. Anything that's worth something takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some books that changed your life? I see a lot behind you. The most prominent one I see is the 10X Rule. But what are some books that you think changed your life and of their debt-free journey?
Yeah, the first book I would recommend to everybody is The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. That's the first one. That's the book that started it for me. And I promise to everybody who's watching this, there are no numbers in that book. It's actually a very easy book. It's written in story form, and it talks about the journey of somebody trying to figure out what the value of money really is. And that's where I get the expression, a part of all that you earn is yours to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Another really good book is The Wealthy Barber by Dave Chilton. Is a really good book that kind of talks about personal finance, also in a story form, but he breaks it out now into more specifics, retirement, saving, the whole 9 yards. I think those are that's a pretty good book. And then, just general books on life. Like, there was a Jim Rohn book called The Seasons of Life. I mean, that has nothing to do with finance under any circumstances, but it talks about how life is. You can look at life like seasons, right? You can look at it just like the seasons of weather. In the springtime, it's opportunity. In the summer is when you protect your crops, right? Things in life are going to happen. In the fall, you reap what you sow. And in the winter, that's when all hell breaks loose, right? That's, those type of books I think are important. And then for those that are considering like investing, what is the name of that book? A Random Walk Down Wall Street. To me, that's one of the best books ever written on finance, in terms of like investing. It tells you everything, and it tells you everything honestly, right? So it doesn't just tell you, here's a new trading strategy. No, it doesn't even get into any of that crap. All it does, it tells you exactly what you need to know and why passive investing is better than active investing over long periods. So I think those three or four, I think I mentioned, would probably be the best ones.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I think this conversation has been really enriching. Thank you. I think you dropped some gems. And I really enjoyed like hearing your personal story and what your next goals are. Where can people find you on social media? Where can people find your information? And what are the, I guess, parting words or parting advice you have to the audience?
Sure. Well, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you doing this. You can find me on Instagram, DebtFreeJoel, Joel, or Joel. Feel free to follow me on there. I'm just trying to give the information out as much as I can. Again, it's for free. This is not necessarily a monetary thing. The one thing I would leave to everybody is a part of all that you earn is yours to keep. It's yours. You're the one that worked hard for it. You're the one that went above and beyond. You're the one that worked 60 hours. You're the one that's away from your kid. You're the one that's away from your husband. You're the one that's away from your wife. You're the one that's not able to go home at the time that you want. The majority of your day is probably doing something you don't like. So make sure that when you get paid, you pay yourself first.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you are the most important thing. And the second thing I would say is do not forget to be charitable, right? It makes absolutely no sense to be financially independent and then to be, cheap with your money when it comes to helping other people. That's where you start to leave real lasting impacts.
I completely agree. I belong to church, so I give my tithes and I have no issue giving with tithes, but I'm really cheap about like giving gifts or like, I don't know, like giving money anywhere else charitably. I'm like super cheap about it. But when you read these books, like giving and being charitable and giving away your money is like you said, it's a mindset thing. And every single wealth book will tell you that you need to do that to grow your wealth. And it's about understanding that you can't hold on to your money so tight. Like you have to have like kind of this wealth mindset, giving mindset, charitable mindset for your money to be able to grow. Because if you're holding it on so tightly that you can't help other people and you're being selfish, it's just the energy around money is bad.
You actually have more fun giving away the money than you do from accumulating it. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is these are not loans that you're giving away, right? You never expect it back.
Right.
Like, like you said, you're religious, so you understand a part of your money. That's God's money at the end of the day. That has nothing to do with you. You are just a vehicle, right? The minute you look at it through that lens, then you're just doing God's work anyway. You're just trying to help who you can help. And again, it's regardless of religion. So you think about the people you could just help within your own neighborhood, your own friends, and be like, look, man, I'll take care of that bill while you're saving money.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? And they never have to pay you back. And when they try to, you can say, look, don't pay me back. Do the same thing for somebody else.
No. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah, to me, it's just energy and blessing. Like it'll come back around to you when you give that out. And you have to, like, every single book says the same thing. Every single book you read about money or like spirituality or anything says be charitable and give away 10%.
Yeah.
So no, that's really, really good advice. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm really excited to see, how you grow personally, and to share your information with everyone. So thank you for joining me during this talk, and thank you for taking the time out of your day.
No, absolutely. I appreciate the time. We can do it again anytime you want.